my mind is at ease knowing that what was meant for me will never miss me, and what misses me was never meant for me. Disappointment is an emotional response that occurs when an expectation or hope is not met. It can arise from various situations, such as failing to achieve a goal, experiencing a letdown in personal relationships, or when reality doesn't align with one's desire or plans. The feeling often involves a sense of frustration, sadness, or dissatisfaction. For example, in filmmaking, disappointment may happen when a project doesn't turn out as envisioned or when it doesn't get the response you hope for from the audience. As I have started directing and writing and trying to make projects, I've faced a lot of rejection. I've faced a lot of disappointments, which is the essence of this video. I wanted to speak about this. Disappointment is an emotional response, something that you essentially have zero control over. I know people say emotions are not real, we deal in facts, but we work in an industry where everything is sort of personal, right? When you're writing to write the best scripts that you can write, it has to be a personal story. When you're engaging in relationships to make that thing happen, it's personal. You feel like you're friends with these people that you're working with. So when you're disappointed, it feels real. One of the things that recently happened to me was there's this project we were working on. We were supposed to film it, and almost 2 weeks, 3 weeks before the project, I was told that we are moving on. We found a different DOP to handle the situation. Your services will not be needed. In that time, I was like, it's fine. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, he probably has a better situation than I have, and fair enough. That's just the way that I look at life. But one thing that happens is you sort of feel disappointed because of the connection and relationship that you have with the people working on this project. So for them to make that decision to say, we're moving on from you, it sort of feels personal, right? But it's just business at the end of the day. And I understood it and I just let it go. But then the thing is, when you start to think about that, you're like, yo, why? I would never do that. But, because I come just from that situation of, I was raised to be like, treat others as you want them to treat you. But the more that I get older, the more that I realize that's just not how life works. People will treat you how people treat you, and you have to accept that.
Sometimes in life, we have expectations, and those expectations are not met, and you feel disappointment. One way that I've tried to live my life this year and the year before was to not have expectations, but I realize as you pursue something, as you do certain things, and you have to work, interact with other people, you develop expectations. You expect something to happen in order for whatever you're working on to progress, and it's very difficult when that doesn't happen and you cannot control the outcome of it because you have no say or power over it. When I was younger, I used to struggle a lot with this, dealing with rejection, dealing with not being chosen. It was tough, it was hard. As I get older, the feeling gets weird. It's not that it's not a feeling of like, oh shit, I'm a loser, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not this and that. You often feel like, I don't understand. There's a Georgia Smith song where she speaks about, she says, I'm not crying because you left me, I'm not crying because you broke me, but I'm crying because I'm stuck on what could have been. I'm stuck on what I expected, and I don't get it. And that's just life, man. Like, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and it's in those moments when things are not going your way, when luck is just afterthought, that you have to find the peace within and take time sometimes to stop, recharge, and just rethink, like, what am I doing? And that for me has become the most critical thing of who am I and what am I trying to achieve.
I once heard a statistic that says for every working actor, these are people who have small roles that you see, most of them do one out of 65 auditions, they get one project, and these are people who are living and working actors who are doing these things, and it shows you the level of rejection that occurs in our industry. And one of the things that a lot of times when people are giving advice, it's towards actors, because it's sort of expected that they won't get the roles. There's only one role, and there's so much that you can do to actually achieve this. When we break down what it means to be disappointed just means you had an expectation, you were thinking of something, and that thing didn't happen the way that you thought it would happen. And one of the best ways to avoid being disappointed is to have no expectations at all. That way, whatever happens, you are open to it. But I think that is a very difficult way to live life, right? So it's like when I press record on my camera, I have an expectation it is going to record. I'm not sitting in front of it not having an expectation and being okay with whatever happens. And I think that in the past few years, there's been this rise of these unemotional people who can just take on whatever. But I think there is an essence to it. But as filmmakers, we have to connect with what makes us human, because that's what allows us to be the creatives that we are. And it's in having conversations and discussions about how can we process disappointment when it does happen. How do we handle those things? When you look at platforms like YouTube, you put out a video with high expectations and it doesn't deliver, and you have to deal with that emotional toil that comes with the situation. So for me, I've been processing a lot lately, like just trying to understand what it means to feel emotionally and what it means to be logical, and just trying to process through those phases. This year is a year where I can say, in terms of catching L's, catching losses, I've caught more than my fair share. And one thing that I've relied on a lot is just having that mentality of it doesn't get worse than this today. But each and every test that comes, it's a mental test. And it's like you start to see when you hear people are doing drugs, when you hear people are doing these things, and you're like, yo, I'm in the same situation and I can understand why they did that. And I think being able to, it's a thing that I took from a guy called Jocko Willink, to step back and assess the situation and see what's going on and then re-engaging. I feel like that is a good method to use every time you feel overwhelmed, or when you feel like everything that's happening is out of your control and those expectations that you had are not being met, because then you're able to face facts, right? Like of what's happening. In the case of, hey, we are moving on. We don't need your services. We are moving on to this guy because this guy is bringing A, B, C, which you do not have. There's no harm to that. Because for me, when it comes to filmmaking, I'm always about the best idea wins, the best situation wins. And once people show me who they are, I believe them. I do not doubt whatever you show me. Like, this is who I am. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm not doubting you. I accept you as you are, and we move forward. It's up to me to protect myself from this situation.
Kobe Bryant has once said, "They're not failures in life, It's only lessons, and you only fail when you accept that and you decide to let that define that moment or that thing that happened. And everything that happens, you have to find the silver lining. You have to find the lesson, because I think that's just how life works. I believe in God, and I believe God doesn't put us in situations that we cannot handle. He puts us in those moments, and sometimes things go in disarray. Things go in a way that we don't even want them to go, and you end up in a battle that you don't want to be fighting. But the key, I feel, is always to find peace within yourself, and that allows you to express that. And I think there's certain things that come with age, to where when you're younger, it's about what do people think about me, and when you're older, you realize whatever people think about you doesn't really matter, because you can't control it, and you lead with grace, and you show compassion where you can, and just live life, man. Just live life.
One of the things that I live by is a quote that I read from J. Cole, when he said, "My mind is at ease knowing that what was meant for me will never miss me, and what misses me was never meant for me." And this is something that I carry throughout my career, which I carry throughout my personal relationships, because what tends to happen a lot is it's easy to dream, when you think about a relationship, when you're starting a relationship with somebody, the promise of what can be, like, it's amazing. This is your future. This is something that you guys gonna do together, the things that you could do together. And when that's taken away, it feels like, oh shit, what do I do at this point, right? And that's just what heartbreak is. And because that expectation of what could have been is taken away from you. And how do you respond to that? It's gut wrenching. And the thing is that I've learned is those moments exist to remind you of what's possible, and all you have to do is accept it and put it in the back of your mind that I I see what's possible. Right now we still working, we don't stop. I don't know when what day it is that a situation will happen where that joy and happiness can be fulfilled, but also it's accepting, and feeling those emotions. I felt like coming up, one of the things I used to do was to suppress the feeling and just move on with this anger. But at this point, I'm learning to process it and being like, oh, what made me feel this way? Oh, I felt like there was a connection, but that connection is not there. It was one sided. I've made a lot of short films based on unrequited love. This is just because when I was young, a lot of this happened and I didn't understand it. And now as I'm older, I try to go back and see what was going on, but it's too late to fix certain things, and you just go, all right, whatever, but you then carry that same attitude within the film business, because in our industry, right, everything is subjective. Like, how do you determine a better DOP than the other, a better director than the other, a better writer than the other? Everything is super subjective. But when you're on the wrong side of that, it's very painful, because you've put a lot of time, effort, and it's so personal, the things that we do. Like, it's everything is almost personal. So whenever you're judged, whenever you're critiqued, it's not critiquing the ideas, it's critiquing the person. And a lot of times it's people who don't even know us that are doing these things. So I'm making this video just as a reminder that it's okay, to feel disappointed, feel the emotions, live within it, and always remember this quote. Expectation is the root of all heartache. The quote recognizes that when we experience disappointment, our hopes and expectations are out of line with reality. We all feel this way from time to time. Some of these disappointments will not make much of a difference, but there are also disappointments that can change the course of our lives. Given the convoluted nature of desire, there are no experiences that are entirely free of disappointment. This is what makes disappointment such a complex and confusing feeling. Many of our desires that we pursue are unconscious, sublimated, and frequently contradictory. Paradoxically, we may even become disappointed when we get what we want. For example, in Sigmund Freud's 1916 essay, Some Character Types met with a psychoanalytic work, he explored the paradox of people who were wrecked by success. Unconsciously, these people believed that their success was unjustified, so achieving it didn't feel satisfying to them. In other cases, even when we do get what we want and think we deserve, we may discover that what we wanted so badly doesn't bring the expected bliss and happiness. Pleasant as disappointments may be, we can always learn something from them. To constructively deal with disappointment, we need to first understand what happened. Some instances of disappointment are predictable and preventable, but there are others that are unavoidable and beyond our control. To manage disappointment, we need to differentiate between situations that fall within our control and factors that are beyond it. Being able to recognize the difference will help us to deal with our frustrations more appropriately. We also need to check whether our expectations are reasonable. Are we having unrealistically high expectations and thus aiming too high? Or are we setting our goals too low? If you belong to the group of people who set their expectations too high, working constructively through disappointments may help you to modify expectations. You may learn to move away from perfectionistic standards. You may start to accept what is good enough. For those who have set the bar too low, what they should stop doing is hanging on to false beliefs about life, like there's no more hope or nothing ever works for me. Avoiding disappointment is not possible in life. Trying to do so is not a very constructive way of dealing with life's challenges. Avoiding disappointment is not possible in life. Trying to do so is not a constructive way to live your life. And in our business, it's part of it. It comes with it. So I don't want to say just deal with it or let it go, but I think a critical thing to always think about is what can I learn from this? What can I learn from my L's? What can I learn from my losses? And I know that we live under pressure to be perfect, but you don't have to be. It's your journey. Live it,
Take time. find peace, find space for yourself, and all will be well, man. It's just a matter of time. Everything will be good. Today, enjoy it, live it, love it, laugh. Don't be afraid. It's all gonna be alright.
When disappointment occurs regularly, it may be advisable to reevaluate our perceptions and behaviors. We can examine whether we are inviting disappointment. Could we have been clearer in our communication of what we were expecting from others? Do we really know what we expect from ourselves? Are we listening to others are saying to us? Could we have done something different to arrive at a different outcome? Also, given what we know about ourselves, how can we adjust our expectations to be more effective the next time? And what support and resources do we have at our disposal to help us move through our feelings of disappointment successfully? To deal with disappointment constructively, don't let it deteriorate into apathy or depression. Sustained negativity, rumination is not a prescription for change. When we become preoccupied by bad news, we lose sight of what is right in our lives and the world around us. We are only internalized feelings of sadness and anger. Hanging on to these feelings can result in an unconsciously making them a part of our identity. When we catch ourselves thinking negatively, we should redirect our energy and focus on positive solutions. Although from an unconscious perspective, we may be reluctant to let go of disappointing experiences, in the long run, it will be more detrimental to continue holding on when we become too preoccupied with thinking about situations that have not met our expectations. We only create unnecessary stress. Disappointment is not meant to destroy us. If taken in stride, it can strengthen us and make us better. In spite of its devastating emotional impact, we may consider encounters with disappointment as journeys toward greater insight and wisdom. But to be able to make these journeys of self-reflection, re-evaluation meaningful, we need to look beneath the surface. Only by working through painful associations will we be free of them. In spite of whatever disappointing experiences come our way, our challenge will be to not let bitterness take root. We would do well to keep in mind that although disappointment is inevitable, being discouraged is always a choice. One of my favorite Kobe Bryant's quotes, and I made a video on this on the channel, is he says there's no such thing as a loss. They're lessons. You only lose the moment you accept it as a loss. In every moment, there's a lesson. And working in the film business, I understand, listen, man, if you're doing 65 auditions to get one job, or some people doing 100 auditions to get one job, it is discouraging. It is disappointing. It is what it is. The feeling is true, but don't be resentful. I recently heard about Michael Jordan's clothes, which was the love of basketball. Most of us, I believe, we get into this industry because we love the art of storytelling. I do get it. Some people want to be celebrities and whatever. If that's you, hey, I wish you the best of luck. But if we love this dying art, we have to work hard at it and we have to invest in it. It's painful. That's just what comes with the territory. There is a future in our industry and it belongs to you and me. So as I leave, I remind you, what is mine will not miss me. What misses me was never meant to be mine.
What are you doing?
Acting 101.
Acting? On your own?
Yes, sir. It's called self-cinematic. I always find it fascinating lighting with the sun because it's a big source of light that you cannot control. Or like on a budget is very difficult to control. But it offers you a lot of possibilities, One thing that I've been playing around with is filming with the sun at a 45-degree angle. So right now it's hitting me this way, and then I'll try to frame from this direction and see what that looks like. Right now I'm front based, but like it's always a fun thing to experiment with when making lighting choices, like how am I going to use the sun. And it's the way that the environment around you acts as well. Like right now I'm surrounded by shade, so it's being taken down a notch, and there's a lot of green, there's a lot of things like that around me, and it's interesting what you can get. Like if I just go back, like you see that sliver of sunshine. I mean, if I have a diffusion here, that would be something else. But yeah,